knowledge I won't tell anybody. So Randy, your uncle ran for chief of police. You think that exempts you from traffic tickets? Tell us about that.
No, but it did get me out of several jury duties. Because he went from, in 1960s, you had to run for chief of police. Maybe I already mentioned this, I think I covered it already. But whenever I'd get called to jury duty, he'd become a detective for the Kansas City Police Department for like 25 years after that. And all I had to do is when they come around, they'd always ask that question, do you have anybody? And then I'd say yes. And so he got me out of several jury duties that I really didn't want to be in. I've been a couple since then. But he also started a program called AID. And they were orange flags, pointed orange flags that different families would be screened to take care of. If you ever were a kid out, because neighborhoods then, people went several, a long ways away from home to play. You didn't worry about kidnappings, but you might fall off your bike, you might get hurt. So if somebody had one of those signs, you could go to that house and they would have the contact information. You had one of those too. Yeah, we had one of those. And I remember my mom helping make those in the basement. My Asa Steen was his name, my uncle that did that, and when he was chief of police, he would confiscate M80s during the year. Well, they had to be disposed of somehow. So the way he disposed of them is he would light them, put them in a slingshot, and shoot them into the woods up in the air. And they would go off really, very loud in the air. Did several of those. Well, one time he was sitting there in the lawn chair and somebody took a rock and put a fuse on it in a rubber band and lit it and threw it underneath his chair. Now, you've never seen a big man move so fast in your life as what he did then. So, all the people on Milmar and Pinnell, to this day, I can tell you every single person where they lived, everyone, Gina can too. We knew each other so well. The neighbors just don't do that anymore, doesn't seem like. And one of the things when we were out, you always knew each other, and if one of the kids did something wrong, the parents were going to find out about it. But it was just really, and we'd get snow in the wintertime, and we had down Pinnell was a nice road, and we'd go sliding down that thing and walking back and forth. There's still one lady, Lois Walden, was a retired counselor from Lee Summit High School. She lived across the street from me. She still lives there. She still lives there. She did have a stroke, and she's not doing well, but she still lives there. Who? Yes, Arlene Arrell. My best friend at the time was Gary Arrell. He's passed away from a stroke, but he lived there, and she still lives there. Paul Boris still lives there, right next to Lois Walden. So some of the same. All the rest of them have passed on or moved away, but just great memories for that area.
Kim, tell us about your career choice.
I will. I told you I had the thought of going into medicine and started at William Jewell and took very difficult classes my freshman year. And then at the end of my year decided that I really wanted to work with children, but I didn't want to work with sick children. I wanted to work with healthy ones. And so changed and followed more of my mom's lead, because she was a teacher, and got a degree in education and taught for a few years before we had our own children. And then we moved to Montreal for a few years for my husband's job. And when we came back, my kids were ready for middle school. And so we knew we wanted to be close. We wanted to be close to my dad. My dad was still living then. And so we moved back to Lee Summit. And I also knew, obviously, that they had a very good education system. So it's kind of a unique perspective as far as being a student, a parent, a teacher, an administrator, all in the same district. And so I taught at Richardson for 10 years with just fun little sixth graders, and then became an assistant principal. I was at Lee Summit Elementary and at Richardson doing that. And then I became the principal at Longview Farm when Dr. Rostein retired, and was there for 7 years and absolutely loved it. And I think a part of the reason, my parents were always supportive of my education. My dad was not hurt or else he didn't let me know if because of my change of vocation. I was always very supportive of that. it's just, I still stand by the school district in Lee Summit, its leadership, it's across the board, whether it's individual buildings or at central office. And I'm very proud of the district, and I feel like we came away, and also my children did their high school years here, came away with very good educations from here, and so something that I continue to support to this day.
Bob, your career choice, other than politics, can you tell us about that?
Yes, actually, I suppose most of it was, well, initially with higher ed. As a matter of fact, when I was at Forest Valley Community College in St. Louis, I was actually accepted into the PhD program at St. Louis University, and my goal initially was to be a college or university president. Well, I didn't do that, so I came back. But actually, I spent about, I can't remember, so I spent several years building houses, and I really enjoyed home building. It worked very well with my legislative schedule because I didn't want to build houses in the wintertime. The legislature wasn't, they're cold a lot of times, but you know, they were in the wintertime. I built about 200 houses, and I enjoyed home building. I hate to, I talked to the mayor-elect a minute ago, and I said, I actually built starter houses. I know that's a negative term in the elections here, but I built a lot of 1,200, 1,500 foot houses, and truly enjoyed it.
Dymon, tell us about your mom.
My mom was the Lee Summit Centennial Queen back in 1965. The town did dress up in period clothing. The men all had the handlebar, mustaches. The women were wearing the long flowing, and we had the back then, Lee Summit sponsored what was called the Lee Summit Jackson County Fair, and it was a big event. People came from round and round, and the governor, it was Governor Hearns, came to put the crown on my mom for the Lee Summit Centennial. And she, just in the last, just recently when they had the bicentennial, she was asked to ride in the red Mustang that you may have seen her during the parade. And she was very, very proud of being the Lee Summit Queen, and she was just delighted to get to ride in that red Mustang for the parade. And the centennial was the 100 years of Lee Summit, and so to make it for the next 50, that was kind of one of her highlights, was that she could say, hey, I was the queen, and now I get to ride during the 50 year, and so she was very, very happy. She recently passed away, and she was a great mom. I was gonna drive a few more seconds.
Carl says it's okay.
I have known this guy when he first came to Lee Summit. He actually sold insurance. And then as a builder, I of course knew him, and so it was fun to be on stage with him. He said he didn't like insurance. I've been very fortunate in the last few years when he was talking about building starter homes. In the last 7 years, I've built 7 different homes, all in the downtown central area. 3 were on Main Street and Orchard. I have some on 6th Street. I built one on Grand Street, one on 7th Street at the only John Rep, which is a good friend of mine. He also was the driver for the school education when they drove. And the house was on the corner of the only four-way stop in Lee Summit per John Rep. And so I have been just very fortunate to have grown up here, to watch it go from 5,000 to 20,000 to 100,000. I think that we have been very, very fortunate, Lee Summit has been, to have such great doctors like Dr. Durnell, which he was my doctor for years, to have the school system. My wife is a retired Lee Summit R7 principal, and so she has been part of the great school that we have now. And being in Lee Summit has really been a fortunate time for me and for all of the folks that are in Lee Summit. So thanks for having me, and I appreciate it all.
I'm going to ask each one of you to share one special event from your childhood that you might want to talk to us about. So Randy, we'll start with you and then you just go down the road.
This goes back to my uncle being chief of police. His mother, my grandmother, lived in Lee Haven. At the time, there was a flasher going around to old ladies' houses, ringing their doorbell and dropping their drawers. My grandmother knew this. My uncle, you didn't have to worry about these rules back then, gave her a pistol to protect herself. Not from that, but she just happened to have a pistol. Well, one day, the doorbell rang. Well, us kids ring the doorbell and just come right in. Doorbell rang and nobody came in. She peeked out through the curtain and she sees a guy standing there with his pants around his ankles. She went and got her gun. She threw open the door and said, "Get out of here, you SOB." She didn't use SOB. And she fired a shot in the ground behind him. Now, today that would get you thrown in jail, but she got a citation from the city of Lee Summit. And we still have pictures of that, of her, because he dropped his wallet when he left.
I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that. I mean, I was thinking things like the homecoming parade. But they were for me, so I can't say that. But and there's been I see some class of '79 friends back there because we won every year, so that made it better. But it was when there was only one high school, and it went down Douglas from the high school down to Dairy Queen, and we just always, and you went out and you actually stuffed the pom-poms in the chicken wire. We went out to Brad Ziegler's all the time, and they had a place out on Tudor Road, and used their garage, and just spent, I don't think we got any studying done that week, because we were all out there every night stuffing chicken wire, getting ready for that homecoming parade, and it paid off for 4 years in a row, I think. But nobody got shot.